Hi.
Thank you everybody for your patience. So Dan, all the platforms are telling us they cannot hear sound. Okay, BRC is on. Great, we got it. Thank you, Dan. You're amazing.
See, as we mentioned, we will fix it as quickly as possible. That shows it right there, everyone. Thank you, engineering team, for letting us know. All right, so moving forward, we're going to get started. And as you all know, today's theme is decommodification in a global pandemic. Remember, if you have questions, just place them in the chat window and wherever you're experiencing this, and they will get to me. So I would love to welcome our very first Accelerant guest, Stuart Mangrum. Stuart has been part of the Burning Man project and Burning Man community since 1993. To begin, Stuart, can you tell us a little bit about what you do at Burning Man?
Sure. Thank you for having me on, Ryan. This is a real pleasure. I have done a million things for Burning Man over the last 27 years. I started the first communications team back in the early days. I have been director of education, working on a lot of our conference systems and distance learning. And for the last most of a year, I've been the director of the Philosophical Center, which is holding what Larry Harvey called the conscience and collective memory of Burning Man. And frankly, I've been more concerned about the latter half of that than the first half, focusing on storytelling projects like our podcast, like live events, like book publishing. So that's what I'm doing right now. Who knows what it'll be tomorrow, but.
Excellent. Well, just that the ability to bounce between all of those different subjects is pretty awesome.
I serve where I'm needed.
Yeah, exactly. What an honor. So let's go ahead and just dive in, Stuart. What to you and to the Burning Man project, what is decommodification? What does it mean?
Wow, that's a great question. All right, I'm going to have to show some slides here.
Please do.
Bear with me. Because the first thing I want to say is that decommodification is 1/10 of the 10 principles of Burning Man. So having a conversation about any individual principle out of context is problematic and potentially risky. So I just thought I'd set a little context first. The 10 principles, to begin with, were not found on some golden tablets or carved in stone. This guy, Larry Harvey, did not write them and say, then I'm going to go out and do Burning Man. He actually didn't compile this document until 2004, which was something like 18 years into the experiment. So it's very much a snapshot of where he saw the community was at that point. And it was for a very specific purpose. It was to help fuel the growth of regional events. So rather than give them a detailed checklist of you must do this and you must do that, he gave them this set of guidelines instead. So anytime we talk about the 10 principles, I kind of like to put some guardrails on the conversation. The first thing is that they are, if you read them, they are not rules, they are not commandments, they are not laws, they are descriptive rather than prescriptive or proscriptive. So they're not a bunch of do's and don'ts. They're actually not even really values. Some people say this is our value system, but they're actions. They're much more practical than that. Now, if you scratch the surface of any one of them, you'll probably find a value pretty close, like scratch the surface of gifting and you'll find generosity or selflessness or community, passion. But they are not a rule set and they can't really be enforced as such. Second, they are aspirational, meaning you can never completely get 100% on any of these. I mean, is it possible to leave no trace? It's really not possible, right? So they are practices. They are things that you might devote some time in your life to trying to get better at. The word radical appears 3 times, and that doesn't mean that they're extreme. Larry meant that in the more traditional, older sense of the word, which means literally from the root or from the heart. It means that they're personal. These are things that are designed to be internalized rather than, looked at in you're doing it wrong sort of a basis. And finally, the most interesting one for me is that they are a system. They work together. Larry liked to say, nothing less than all 10 will do. But when you think about them that way as a set, you will find that there are interesting tensions and synergies. tensions, for instance, communal effort versus radical self-reliance. Which one wins? It's a conversation, right? And ultimately, I think that's the key takeaway, is that they're designed to have a conversation about what we like and don't like about Burning Man. It's more of a vocabulary than it is, an encyclopedia. So there are 10 of them. I encourage everyone to read all 10, and not just the headline version. That's another short step that a lot of people take. It's only 500 words. Go ahead and read the whole thing. But if you look at the set of 10, there are actually 4 of them that I think all reflect economic behaviors: radical self-reliance, gifting, communal effort, and decommodification. All reflect the way that we work on an economic level with each other. Now, a lot of people look at that and they think that Burning Man is Marxist somehow, particularly with all those radicals sprinkled through it, right? But actually, Larry's thinking was informed much more by the work of this guy, a fellow named Lewis Hyde, American author, wrote a great book about gifting societies. And honestly, if you look at the principles as a whole, a lot of them refer back to gifting. That ultimately, that's what we were trying to create, was an atmosphere of generosity and trust and mutual support. And that's why it kind of butts its head up against, mainstream capitalism and consumerist tendencies. So what do they do together? They create that atmosphere of what we often call playa magic, right? Why is it so easy to talk to somebody? Why is it so easy to make a new friend, to start a new project? Why are people so open with each other? Well, those economic behaviors are a huge part of that. I mean, decommodification, just in and of itself, in the event space, it creates an environment where we have to deal with each other as people and not simply as economic actors. By removing brand markers, brand markers are kind of the caste system of capitalism, right? Depending on the brands that I sport, am I of a higher or a lower economic class than you? Decommodification is a great equalizer in that sense, and that it makes pretty much everybody possible to everybody. Think about it this way: if in the ordinary life, let's say you're walking down Times Square and somebody offered you a gift, what would you think? You'd think, what is this person trying to sell me? So at that level, decommodification removes that sort of fear or hesitancy among people and makes them open up to each other more. I just wanted to point out that within the text of decommodification, there are actually shout outs to 3 other principles. This is an example of the interconnectedness of them. First line, the purpose of this principle is to preserve the spirit of gifting, to create that atmosphere of generosity and openness. Immediacy is one of the principles that's often mistaken for just turn off your cell phone, but it really means that you have direct and real relationships with other human beings that are not mediated in any sense of the word. And participation gets a little shout out there at the end. The other key words that I just wanted to point out here are the created social environment. And that's one that's really kind of tricky, because when these principles were written, the scope of our world was Black Rock City. There wasn't any outside world, and it was completely the created environment. And as it was exported to regional events, it was the same thing, right? But now, well, it's hard to tell which side of the trash fence you're on for a lot of reasons. First of all, the fact that we now have a year-round nonprofit operation that doesn't exist inside our bubble of decommodification and radical economics. It exists in the world of commerce, the world of ideas, the world outside the trash fence. Second, there are some blurry lines now on what exactly is a created environment. I would say the universes are a good example of that, right? Are those strictly created environments? Or this event is taking place in universes that were mapped out according to the 10 principles, but it's also taking place on places like Facebook and YouTube that are steeped in commerce and are highly commercialized environments. So figuring out whether you are inside the bubble, whether you're outside the bubble, or whether you're hanging off the skin of the bubble is a tough one. We also have been dealing recently with Playa-born brands, with people who started out doing things on Playa, created successful businesses with them, like the Shift Pods of the world, or even like our art crews who have created a name around themselves, like Flux Foundation or like Flaming Lotus Girls or Hibikozo, right? Figuring out how to navigate that relationship of where they have their own business entity has been a real challenge for the organization. And I would say the last in the category of challenges is the more recent phenomenon of influencers. When an individual becomes a brand in their own right, where does that sit? If you're inside a brandless environment, promoting yourself as a brand, how do we deal with that? The last thing I just wanted to note is that, a lot of times the organization gets a lot of flack for being the police of decommodification or enforcing rules, when typically what we're really trying to do is trying to defend the community's intellectual property, and not just the very limited set that Burning Man Project owns, which is the logo mark, the city map, and the name Burning Man, but also to protect the intellectual property of our artists, because anytime somebody takes a picture out on Playa, they're not just taking the Burning Man city, they're taking images from lots of artists who contributed their own creative work. So I chose this slide because it is often a quixotic adventure. We have a couple of lawyers, but when a national sandwich chain wants to do an ad that looks like it's at Burning Man, we don't have as many lawyers as they do. So we kind of have to put that down and say, pick your battles, right? Ultimately, the idea is, does it advance the culture or does it not? And like I said, we struggle with these decisions all the time. So that's my little introductory piece.
Thank you, Stuart. I mean, that was such a in-depth introduction to not only the 10 principles, but specifically decommodification. And I agree, you can't take them out of a vacuum, right? I mean, because they just interplay with each other in such different ways while you're out on Playa. And then when you extrapolate that into the real world, how do you marry them and interact with them in your waking life? And I've also, knowing we were talking to you, inventor of the multiverse here, knowing that we're doing so many different platforms. I mean, this is like multiverse on steroids here. The number of platforms we're operating on right now, which has been a lot of challenges, but it's been really fascinating to see come forward. Okay, so I'm going to open this up for some questions. Let's see if we have any questions coming in. All right, we got a question from Twitch. This is from Spirit Search. Spirit Search asks, as burners, we try to embody the role of decommodification on Playa, but we still fall back into these economic roles when integrating back into the real world. Do you have any advice for people who want to continue living the decommodification principle within everyday reality?
Yeah, that's a great question. It is so much easier to see the lines once we are in an event space, whether it's in Black Rock City or at Africa Burn, it's much clearer. But like I said, it's a bit of a bubble. So out in the world, how do you proceed with this? First of all, I will go back to what I always say, which is, look at all of them together. I mean, like right now, I'm looking at my performance on the 10 principles in the time of quarantine, right? I think I'm doing pretty good on gifting. I've actually been giving and buying more gifts. I'm doing better on radical self-reliance. I'm not so happy with my leaving no trace record though, because I'm piling up all this plastic and using all these like delivery services. Yeah. From a decommodification point of view, I don't know. I mean, look at the heart of it. What is it? It's to have genuine relationships and not be controlled by brands, by advertising, by all of that. So for me, and I can only speak from a personal level, it means paying more attention to shopping locally with people that I have relationships with. It means tipping more heavily because I pity these servers who are out there. It means making sure that I'm buying products that are sustainably and ethically produced, right? And thinking about where the money is going to that I am sending it to. So I think there are ways to be a more conscious consumer, because let's face it, we can't just punch out of the consumerist world. We're stuck with it. I think we're blessed though to be able to have those event spaces where we can turn that off even for a short period of time and feel like it will experience what it's like to go through the city without a wallet, or maybe not even remembering where your wallet is, and resisting that urge to replace an interaction with a transaction.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a good point there. I can remember my first Burning Man experience, going without a wallet, and then leaving Burning Man and going back into the default world, just going, to a store and being, oh, that's right, I have to pay for this. So it is really fascinating how, when you remove that commodified element, how it becomes more interactional than transactional, which I think is, for me, one of the most amazing experiences being out there. All right. So if going back to questions here, if you're in the multiverse, please chat with Lance Miami, or if you're in BRCVR, use your raised hand emoji. Do we have any questions coming from YouTube? Looks like we do. YouTube, Drew asks, how does decommodification relate to performing artists who cannot make a living right now?
Once again, I'm going to go back to looking at all 10, and there are so many tensions between them. That sounds like there's a tension between radical self-reliance and decommodification. Sometimes you got to come down on one side rather than the other, because if you can't take care of yourself, you can't make art, you can't contribute to the culture. But once again, I'm thinking about those considerations like, where are you buying supplies from? Who are your suppliers? What's your distribution channel like? What kind of businesses are they? Who are the people on the other end of that, of both sides of that, creative supply chain? And I feel for you. I guess the good news is that if you're in lockdown, you have more time to work on your art. I certainly do, but I don't have an easy answer for that. It's tough.
Yeah, and I think even what I have seen with artist friends is the amount of creativity and activation that's come out of being quarantined is pretty phenomenal. So it's the radical self-reliance has been amped up like hugely, because people are like, oh my gosh, normal streams are not happening. What can I do to make ends meet? So I think that's been a really interesting part to see people activate on. All right, let's see. Do we have any questions from Facebook at all? Okay. We'll move forward to, let's go to our verses, our universes here. Any questions from Sparkle folks? Oh, it looks like we have, a question coming in from Zoom. Alex Dilsto asks, how does buying a large amount of supplies square with decommodification?
Well, that question doesn't make any sense to me, because decommodification is talking about, it's not anti-commerce. It's not saying don't buy stuff. I mean, yes, we want to try to turn down our consumerist tendencies, but what are you going to do? I mean, that actually requires that bit of radical self-reliance. The other very hard link that Larry likes to talk about is radical self-reliance is what enables gifting. The fact that you have taken care of yourself means that you have the stuff for others. Now, I would love it if I could, make all my own stuff for Black Rock City. That'd be great. I can weave my own tent, build my own tent poles, knit all my own sweaters. I don't live in that world.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think also it circles back to like what you're saying specifically within our current COVID situation is choosing where those dollars are spent. So it's smaller mom and pops, or maybe it's the artist that's doing a Zoom teaching how to tap dance or something like that. It's shifting that stream. So not so much decommodifying, but being more mindful about where you actually spend.
Yeah, and think about where the money is going, right? Is it going to some faceless chain of big box stores, or is it going to your local businesses? Is it going to local artists? Is it going to folks that have a face and not just this kind of fake brand image?
All right. Okay. So it looks like I got another question here. All right, so let's go ahead and let's see. Sorry, I'm reading some questions while I'm getting some information here. Pull up a question here. It looks like we have a question also coming back in from Spirit Search. I'm seeing it on Twitch here. Not everyone goes to Burning Man is a follower of the principles, even when the event is asking them to be, unfortunately. How would you advise those who value these principles to properly educate non-believers into seeing the importance of following and celebrating them with emphasis on the principle of decommodification?
That's a great question. And the key word in that is indeed educate. I think one of the strengths of Black Rock City is that every year we have at least a third of the people are new to the culture. And a lot of these are behaviors that are difficult to even understand until you've experienced them. Like gifting, our notions of gifting are so tied up in reciprocity, and Christmas giving, which is so hyper commercialized. You have to create a place for people to be able to experience that straight up. It's all about education, and personally, I think the best way is to lead by example. I don't tell people to pick stuff up. I just moop it myself, and they see me mooping it. And they're like, "Oh, here's this guy who's just taking care of it himself," right? And in all of them, I try to be an exemplar of them. And and honestly, if people don't get it after one or two tries, they usually don't come back. But once they experience what it's like to not be in those hyper transactional relationships and to be open to people, if they love it, I always say Burning Man is not for everybody, but for the people who get it, they want to come back and they want to go deeper into those principles. So it's a waiting game, it's patience, and it's helping bring people along.
Yeah, I like that. It is definitely a waiting game. I mean,
and it's focusing on the behaviors and not the values, right? If you try to tell people what to believe, they're going to say, "Fuck you." But if you say, we act this way when we're together for a common good, and we'd like you to try to act this way like we do, that's a different story, right? That's much more practical.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it becomes more digestible for people because then they can access it any which way works best for them, which is more of a learning experience, I would say.
Yeah, in participant outreach, we've really tried to focus on the ones that are absolutely essential to us. If people don't get gifting on their first trip, that's okay. They'll figure it out. But if they don't get leaving no trace, if they don't get radical self-reliance, that creates hardship for the community. So a lot of our early outreach to participants focuses on those kind of essentials for the Commonwealth.
And those become bigger. I don't know if I would say bigger, but they become more tiered principles, if you will. Just that importance for the entire community, for the longevity of the community itself.
Yeah, I mean, they're, like I said, they're all important and they all work together. Some of them have more immediate effects on your neighbors if you don't pick them up quickly. So.
All right. Looks like thank you for that. Looks like I have a question coming in from Facebook. Miguel asks or says, "I am not a burner. How do I apply this in my real life?"
Great question. I mean, we talked a little bit about decommodification and what that really means, but just overall, I have seen people take the 10 principles into all kinds of unexpected environments. In the classroom, organizing kids around classroom behaviors that focus on this. Actually in business, even people have started to organize around some of these values because these behaviors, because they do reflect values in a more real way than any corporate, mission statement designed by some committee of, a group writing process is ever going to do, right? Because they're real. They're things that you can actually do. So look at that whole list, and they don't have to be. You don't have to do them in order. You don't have to get them all right. You don't have to put the same weight on all of them, right? See which ones speak to you, and I think if you reflect on it, you'll find ways that you could improve your personal process in that regard.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for that question there, Miguel. And Stuart, this kind of wraps up our segment with you. I want to thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us and be our first guest on Accelerant. This has been such an honor to chat with you and get your body of knowledge with your experience of Burning Man and the 10 principles and the collective consciousness of it. Let's use the ASL sign for applause and give Stuart a round of applause.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for putting this series together and for all that you're doing. fundraising, yes, we could use some money right now. All right, thank you.
Thank you. All right, so just as a reminder, we're going to be dropping the fundraising link into the chat on your platforms. Please show some support for the Burning Man project now. That was such an engaging conversation with Stuart Mangrum. We're so grateful to have him here and have that conversation. Okay, so now we're going to be moving forward. I'd like to bring in our second guests this afternoon, Michael Garlington and Natalia Bertotti. Michael's a photographer, master printer, and sculptor, and he's been partnering with Natalia on projects since 2013, including their gorgeous daughter, Poppy.
Poppy!
With us. Oh, there she is. Hi, welcome, Michael, Natalia, and Poppy. So glad to have you guys with us.
Thank you.
Great to be.
Absolutely. So you brought 3 art projects to 3 separate burns, and you were one of the featured artists at the Burning Man exhibit at the Smithsonian Institute, which is really, I mean, what an accolade right there. Can you guys give us a quick overview of each project?
Sure. Let's put up some pictures so people can see.
Love to see it.
And in 2012, Hi. So in 2012, I brought with Laura Kimpton Ego, and Ego was a 60-foot long, 20-foot tall word, obviously covered in plaster trophies. And the concept was that when the piece burned down, the trophies wouldn't, and people could sort of take a piece of the Ego home with them. You know, Burning Man, you learn lessons. You know, it actually caused a huge mess. Luckily, I was on the cleanup crew that year, and I always remember one of the cleanup people on the radio saying, "We got a bunch of Garlington's Ego over here," and you know, so they knew where to find me, and I had to go, you know, clean it up. But you learn. It was people did take things from it, and it worked to some degree. So, and it was a beautiful burn, that's for sure, burning their Ego to the ground. And then in 2013, I went back to my photographic style, making a massive picture frame portal and turning it into a church. So the photo chapel was born, and we didn't know if any of this would work. And it's always like, you know, you go for it with limited time and limited money, but just with heart, and you just never stop, because you got about 3 or 4 months to build these things. And then I met Natalia, and she walked into the studio, and a lot of this is our voices speaking together.
Definitely. Yeah, actually, Ego was the first time I saw Mike's art out on Playa, and I'd seen him in Petaluma. And so when I finally went into his studio and started working with him, and then he got this project, that was such a great idea to be able to go out to the Playa and actually be a part of something. Because the first time I went, it was more as a ticket holder and just trying to find my way, and actually being a part of something made a huge difference in my experience of Burning Man. And then when we got to do the Totem of Confessions the next year, or 2 years later, then that was just like even more of a glimpse into the participatory nature of the event. And so this photo shows the schematic that we submitted to Burning Man to try and get some funding to be part of the honorarium. And then on the right, you see what we created.
Yeah, so we, you know, in this schematic, it left a lot up to our interpretation, which is great because we didn't know either. And that's kind of the journey of it all, you know, building a piece is, and what makes it so exciting is how you just surprise yourself, you know, and your partner.
Yeah,
what comes next? So much to cover, right?
So much to cover, 6 stories, and we're just like, all right, what are we gonna do? We have a lot of portrait photography, obviously, and that makes for great stories for people to look at. And then we had the whole inside with the confessional as well, to really give people things to look at and become a part of interacting with each other, especially within the confessional, and
Little
even just
holes
the
to-
stories that
you can
people
look
would
in.
tell about what they'd see in the artwork. And just the way our work is, your eye just kind of keeps moving.
Yeah, I mean, the photographic, to be able to clad our pieces in photos is such a dream come true, because that's always the question is, how do you clad all of this area? You know, David Best uses the, you know, CNC or some cutout, the dinosaurs, and it really, really works. But it's always the question is, how are they going to clad this, you know, and be effective and do this in 4 months, so that it's like, how did this end up out here? And just, you know, try to, you know, blow their minds.
A lot of diluted wood glue.
A lot of diluted wood glue, yeah.
Some
Next
thin
week,
paper.
what do
Oh,
we
yeah.
have?
And then this
And then
is
the burn.
burning. Wow.
That we had no idea that this thing was going to burn like this. I mean, it blew up. It's a ziggurat and basically a massive chimney. So, you know, as Bonefire Bob was lighting the structure with his crew, while they were lighting it, the top blew. I mean, it was
Because it was lit from the inside. Yeah, and the walls were all hollow. Like, I think at the base it was 2 feet.
yeah, because we had the hidden viewing rooms. You could look in little holes, and it
So
was a
it
mirror
just
trick.
made for so much airflow and there were holes all throughout the whole tower to let in light and through the stained glass that we had. So yeah, it burned fast for how big
It was so fast. It was so fast. We were
It's
sitting
like,
up
oh, wow.
with our crew, and then it was just gone, and it was like gone in like literally 10 minutes.
Yeah.
All that
was
work.
amazing.
But it felt so good. It's like a sand mandala, you know, you spend all this time, you know, making this piece, and you give it to the people, and also you get photos, but then you blow it, you know, it's blowing away.
Totally.
So nice. Really a nice feeling. Very freeing.
Mhm.
What do we have next here?
Let's see. What do we have next?
Okay, and then so a few years ago we built the Spire of Babel.
And this was for a Art on Fire group show out of Norfolk, Virginia, at the Hermitage Museum and Gardens. And they approached us after doing the Totem of Confessions. And so we built a 4-way confessional for this that we originally intended to go inside the next larger Burning Man project that we built. But that's not going to end up happening. But this one was totally clad in cast cement pieces. So we did stained glass photographs. So that was a new direction that we took too,
Yes.
where we had a photograph and then also kind of like plexiglass, what are those, photo gels in between it.
Yeah. And the concept with a 4-way confessional, and why we call it the Spire of Babel, is that if 4 people are confessing in 4 different languages, it would just be, you know, Babel. So it was kind of
total
a
chaos.
little bit of tongue in cheek with the concept, but people could go in there and kind of talk to other people through the walls.
And the ceiling was open too, so it kind of just let the sound
Right. Yeah.
filter throughout.
And
Then next,
Yes.
we created the paper arch for the Renwick Gallery, and that was just like a dream come true.
yes. Yeah, from just walking into the Renwick and just, you know, the hair is standing up on your, you know, it's like this is where you always dreamed of going, right? And whenever I've always gone to museums and I look behind the door where they're installing a show, and I just say, one of these days, you know, maybe. And there we were, and it was so, I'm overwhelmed and so humbled by the whole concept. And we got to build this piece basically to fit in this room. So at the studio, we took the measurements and just went to work. I think we had
a
6
few
months.
months on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had more time
but
than we did for the totem, actually.
Yeah, and then
but it was good.
thousands of pieces. This was thousands of pieces, and it was a traveling show. So it had to be taken apart and shipped and brought to we went to into Cincinnati, and then
Oakland.
taken apart and brought to Oakland. And now it sits out in our studio. But
yeah, this was going to be inside the next.
this,
yes.
yeah. So this was the centerpiece for the next piece we're going to show you, which was going to go to Burning Man this year, but obviously things changed, and it is the Chapel of Babel. But we got to build at least a model, which was very helpful. just to kind of see, you know, how much material we would need. We never had done something like this. Very, very helpful for the engineers, and just to get an overall vision of it, and take a little stress off. If you're going to build it in 4 months, you kind of want to know what you're doing. So it was going to have a miniature city around it. So when you stand back at first camp or center camp and you look across the playa, it's deceiving on its size. It's 60 feet tall, but there's a little city around it that you can, when you actually get closer, you're actually kind of a giant within the city. And you can look in the windows and people are doing things. So it's very detailed. And the city was the kind of the new, bringing something new to the table. And then in the center would have the arch, you know, so as you look down through the doors, you would see the doors and you would see the arch in the center. And we're still very hopeful to bring it whenever Burning Man comes back.
Puppy.
But yeah, so is that,
Yeah.
that's what, yeah, so that's, those are some of the things we've done that Burning Man has saved our art life and brought us so many, brought us this beautiful baby.
Yeah, she's safe.
Yeah, well, I mean, your work, both of your work is just so breathtaking and inspiring. Just to editorialize really quick, 2015 was my first burn, and I was over in the 430 sector, and I can remember looking out and being like, what the holy hell is that? And first thing I did, get on my bike, went out there, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's photography. The whole thing is made of photography. And then you step inside and it was mind blowing. And then having that experience of like, oh no, they're going to take that down and take it out, right? And then watching the whole thing go up in smoke, I was like, oh my God, that's such a lesson in ephemerality, right? So being able to have that experience, you know, you guys were my first art experience at Burning Man for my very first burn. So yeah, so there we go. So then obviously, thank you for that presentation. I think, you know, your work speaks for itself, the surrealist nature. As you know, our topic today is decommodification in a global pandemic. Can you each share with us what you understand decommodification means as it relates to being someone who is able to make a living off of their art?
Yeah, I mean, what is so wonderful about art in this time is it's still a way for us to deal with the stresses of life and to also share that with other people, to inspire them and show them that if I can do it, then anybody can do it. And it's so when I hear a story that you say in 2015 you saw this and it blew your mind, and
that's just inspiration to keep going.
Yeah, that's my payday. So I mean, you're not going to make a lot of money usually as an artist, but you know, if you make somebody inspired or somebody just picks up anything and makes an expression, that's it. I'm totally paid for it. That's great.
Yeah, I totally agree. The inspiration is everything. And just sharing that and spreading the chain of inspiration to people is just the best.
Yeah.
And just hearing people's reaction to what we do is always.
I don't fall for.
Part,
I mean, I don't fall for the thing of plagiarism or anything. I believe that if you see something that you're inspired by, go ahead and do it. I mean, this is how art communicates through the generations. You know, it is a great chain. And if you want to do cubism, if you want to do a take on another piece, that's great. Do it, please do it. And that's all good. And that's what I'm learning as I get older. It's just every bit of expression is fantastic because it expresses how that person was feeling at the time.
Yeah.
You know,
I think also what it allows you to do is it allows the artist to grow, right? I mean, because if you're pushing yourself to try a medium maybe that you haven't tried before, like going from your statues to back to photography, you know, I mean, that had to be just jarring first off. And I think it's really funny, Natalie, that you saw his piece and you were basically picking up his ego on the playa as well before you actually met him. I think that's actually pretty funny. But yeah, I mean, so it's just like, forcing yourself to try something new and see what breaks and see what works, and what you learn through that process is pretty huge. Okay, well, I'm gonna open it up to some questions here from our different platforms. Okay, so it looks like we have a question on Twitch. Spirit Searcher says, after talking about decommodification at Burning Man with Stuart Mangrum, in the last interview, as an artist, you still need to promote yourself and your art to survive monetarily. How do you mitigate that line to prove the motives behind your art are genuine without stepping into a realm of advertising or consumerism?
Yeah, it's such a delicate balance. I mean, social media is how we sell our art in these days. You know, I get up every morning to make art because I have to. It's cliche, but it's true. Then I want to get it out to the world. We can't have art shows as much right now, so it goes on Instagram. What can you say? You know, and that is the way people see it, and that is how I get feedback on new work. And it is a constant struggle to say, well, am I going to dig a ditch to get diapers, or, you know, try to sell some art and do it? But usually it's not on the website. It's really on Instagram, you know.
Okay.
And I don't know if that helps the question. I mean, it's really job for job, you know, to keep artists alive, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I would imagine too, especially in the scale that you guys work in. I mean, because it's not like you're, you know, it's not like a two-dimensional piece that you're working on for maybe a couple hours or a week or so.
Right.
I mean, these are, you know, like you were saying, your piece in the museum, what, took 2 months?
Yeah, it took about 6 months to build.
6 months, excuse me. Yeah.
But one of the things we're doing now, which is a totally different concept, is we just have one tarot card to shoot. We're doing a photographic tarot card deck. So this is sort of an idea too, to try to make money and give back, is to make this, follow the Rider-Waite's tarot cards and do our interpretations in photographic form. And this way we might be able to sell a tarot card deck. Then we can make an art book. And then we could make an art show. Like in the back, you'll see one of the tarot cards put into like one of our frames.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a way of throwing ideas back where it gives to it. It's not too consumerism. It's, you know, it gives a deck of tarot cards, which people use, you know, for mysticism, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's such a huge divination tool. And I think to do your interpretation of that art piece, or that deck, really goes back to what you're saying about people challenging themselves to do it. Just do it. Even if it feels like you're duplicating something else, just do it, because you will put your own spin on it, which is...
That's right. Yeah, absolutely.
And this has been such an experience with everybody that's been a part of the cards, because different people have come in to play the different cards, and sometimes they pick the ones they want to do. Sometimes we're like, okay, this is the one that we have ready to go, and then it turns out to be some like meaningful thing for them.
Yeah, it's almost like
oh,
a
this
tarot.
is so me right now. So it's just been an interesting adventure in that way, and just the different types of, I think, mediums that we keep ourselves open to do help us like carry on with creating art of all different types. We're not just saying we're just going to do this one thing and that's it. It's just like we're open to whatever someone will put in front of us and inspire us to do.
Lovely
and that's
challenge.
so fun.
Well, that's part of it, right? Is that challenge? That's that sheer act of creation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we have a couple more questions coming in here. I have Sparkleverse. Drew is asking, what advice would you guys give to other artists who are struggling right now with no public gatherings?
I mean,
it is a struggle.
It is. I know. I would just say keep creating and just believe that it is going to come back in that way. And it's just like, I mean, we went downtown Petaluma where we live yesterday, and people are getting out again. So it's even just like finding those local pop-ups or finding places that you can go outside spaces. It's kind of like,
I mean, you gotta fill your soul.
Yeah, totally.
It's so hard right now, and there's no doubt about it. Especially, you know, for artists. But to keep the positive energy is what we got to do. It's hard to say that. It sounds like bullshit sometimes, but I mean, the alternative is just too dark. So just that positive vibe. I mean, really try to make that lemonade. It sounds so cliche, I know, but it's just like making the lemonade every day, you know?
Yeah. Well, like I was mentioning to Stuart in the last interview, it's interesting to see. I know of a lot of people in my life that this whole quarantine situation has really challenged them to do things that they wouldn't have necessarily done, or steps that they would have taken, maybe because they've been let go from their jobs, or because we've been so isolated for so long. It strips away all of that commentary that happens.
Yeah.
The stuff that keeps you busy all day, now you can really slow down and be like, okay, wait a minute.
Yeah.
So I got another question here from Zoom. Steve G asks, how do you envision payment platforms like Venmo and PayPal to help artists during the pandemic?
I mean, I think it's been a big help for us. That's definitely how we've taken payment before, and we just did recently. So it's been a great way to be able to get artwork to people that we can't necessarily see. We love to install our artwork for people if they buy something and put it up and make sure that it's safe.
Once it's on the wall,
straight, we love to see it in its new home too,
true.
but obviously that's not always an option.
Steal the silverware. I mean, wait, hold on.
And incorporate it in the next piece.
That's what I meant. That's the word.
More eyes need to see it. More eyes need to see it.
Absolutely. Well, you guys, thank you so much. This wraps up our time with you. I really appreciate you both, and Poppy as well, taking the time to chat with us about your art and decommodification as it exists right now during a pandemic. So we really appreciate you guys being here and taking this time.
Thanks so much. We appreciate you.
Absolutely. Well, everyone, that first hour went by extremely quick. I want to thank Michael, Natalia, and Poppy and Stuart for all being part of this first Accelerant discussion. This has been really amazing and a lot of fun. And thank you to our ASL interpreter, Zofia Lewandowski, for providing this platform for inclusion as well. Everyone, our next Accelerant will be November 15th. Please join us, and we will be having new guests discussing and debating the topic of civic responsibility. This will be post-election, so it should be interesting and engaging. So please join us on November 15th, same time. All right, so before we get to our second hour with our DJ Nate from Sydney, I just want to give a few thanks to people who made Accelerant possible. A huge shout out to all the campmates at Celestial Bodies who supported Accelerant. A huge thank you to Andrew Barrett and Lance Osman for conceiving of this and producing this event. I mean, this is amazing, you guys. Thank you so much. Thank you to Dan Benj, who engineered the technical solution that has enabled this radical inclusion across multiple platforms. As you saw, he was able to get things fixed up really quickly. Thank you, Dan. Our virtual designers, Sean Wadron and Colleen Cassidy, Keith Yoder for his behind the scenes support, and our campmates, Gustav, Ken, Steve, Kat, and Tim for the countless hours of meeting and tech support. And I mean, countless. We are dropping, remember, we are doing this as a fundraiser for the Burning Man Project. So we're going to drop that link one more time into your chat windows on your platforms. Please get it if you can. And please help ensure that we can all go back to the playa in 2021, or when health codes permit us to go back. Imagine this on the playa, everyone. All right, so are you ready for part two? I know I am. I'm ready for a drink too. Nice glass of champagne for me. We'll be showcasing everyone dancing in BRCVR and in the multiverse, and all of you on Zoom. So please don't touch your screens, as our engineer will handle all of that. Just get up on your feet and welcome our beloved campmate, DJ Nate from Sydney. And let's dance. And thank you everyone for making this first Accelerant be as awesome as it was. And we look forward to seeing you guys next month. All right, let's dance, everyone.
You got to reach. find. I'm just beginning, the pen's in my hand, ending unplanned. Staring at the blank page before you, open up the dirty window, let the sun illuminate the words that you could not find. Reaching for something in the distance, so close you can almost taste it. Release your inhibition. Staring at the blank page before you, open up the dirty window, let the sun illuminate the words that you could not find. Reaching for something in the distance, so close you can almost taste it. Release your inhibition. Staring at the blank page before you, open up the dirty window, let the sun illuminate the words that you could not find. Reaching for something in the distance, so close you can almost taste it. Release your inhibitions, feel the rain on your skin. No one else can feel it for you, only you can let it in. No one else can speak the words on your lips. Treat yourself in words unspoken. Live your life with arms wide open. Today is where your book begins. Still unwritten. Still unwritten. I break tradition. Sometimes my tries are outside the line. We've been conditioned to not make mistakes, but I can't live that way. Staring at the blank page before you, open up the dirty window, let the sun illuminate the words that you could not find. Reaching for something in the distance, so close you can almost taste it. Release your inhibitions, feel the rain on your skin. No one else can feel it for you, only you can let it in. No one else can speak the words on your lips. Treat yourself in words unspoken. Live your life with arms wide open. Today is where your book begins. Feel the rain on your skin. No one else can feel it for you, only you can let it in. No one else can speak the words on your lips. Treat yourself in words unspoken. Live your life with arms wide open. Today is where your book begins. The rest is still unwritten. Staring at the blank page before you, open up the dirty window, let the sun illuminate the words that you cannot find. Reaching for something in the distance, so close you can almost taste it. Release your inhibitions. Staring at the blank page before you, open up the dirty window, let the sun illuminate the words that you cannot find. Reaching for something in the distance, so close you can almost taste it. Release your inhibitions. Feel the rain on your skin. No one else can feel it for you, only you can let it in. No one else can speak the words on your lips. Treat yourself in words unspoken. Live your life with arms wide open. Today is where your book begins. Feel the rain on your skin. No one else can feel it for you, only you can let it in. No one else can speak the words on your lips. Treat yourself in words unspoken. Live your life with arms wide open. Today is where your book begins. The rest is still unwritten. The rest is still unwritten. The rest is still unwritten.
You've done me wrong. Your time is up. You took a sip from the devil's cup. You broke my heart. There's no way back. Move right out of here, baby. Go on, pack your bags. Just who do you think you are? can't do. Cause I've had enough of me, baby, being part of you. Just who do you think you are? This time you've gone too far. Just who do you think you are? Take it like a man, baby, if that's what you are. Cause I'm moving on up, you're moving on out, moving on up. Nothing can stop me. Moving on up, you're moving on out. Time to break free. Nothing can stop me. Moving on up. Moving on up. Moving on up. Moving on up. Moving on up, you're moving on out, moving on up. Nothing can stop me. Moving on up, you're moving on out. Time to break free. Nothing can stop me. Moving, moving, moving. Nothing can stop me. Moving, moving. Time to break free. Nothing can stop me. Yeah. Moving on up. Moving on up. Moving on up. Moving on up. Moving on up, you're moving on out, moving on up. Nothing can stop me. Moving on up, you're moving on out. Time to break free. Nothing can stop me. Moving, moving, moving. Nothing can stop me. Moving, moving. Time to break free. Nothing can stop me. Yeah. Then I'm moving. Nothing you can do about it. Nothing you can do about it. Then I'm moving. Then I'm moving. Then I'm moving.
It's funny how I find myself in love with you. If I could buy my reasoning, I'd pay to lose. One half won't do. I'll ask myself, how much do you commit yourself? Or is my life? Don't you forget, it's my life. It never funny how I blind myself. I never knew. I was sometimes played upon, afraid